Hello, welcome to Sissy's Cards and Crafts. It is Sissy. I am an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator here in Eastern Ontario, Canada. Welcome to my craft room, and thanks for joining me in making my second card of the Frame Violets or Violet Dreams Suite. I had it up here a second. It's a set of DSP, ribbon, paper, or a specialty paper, and the gems, which I don't have here. I had them out a second ago. They're very beautiful gems. And set them aside, and now I can't find them. We're not going to use them tonight anyways. Yeah. So the cards we made last night were these ones because they also have an ephemera with them. So these added pieces that are already cut out, you just punch them out. And so that was the card we did last night. So the set has your stamps and your dies. I'm going to use tonight the Scalloped Bloom dies. We used it last night for a sentiment piece that we cut out. This little piece here for the tag. But tonight, this is the one we're going to use. So a couple different things about this. One, we're going to use watercolor paper, and we're going to watercolor some flowers. We're also going to die cut some flowers. And then, like I say, we're going to use the blooms. So this one, I also used a set that is now retired, but this mixed label set, it's pretty sweet. You can get your hands on it. It's a great little set. Like you can see, it says, "Thank you. Your kindness made my day. For a great friend. I'm so glad we're friends. Happy anniversary. You're pretty wonderful. Just a note to let you know you're on my mind with sympathy." And then just a little flower stamp, and then this banner stamp. So it also is a suite, or a set rather, bundle. That's what I was looking for. And I really like this bundle because there's your banner, but then you have these cute other little dies, and you know what, this one would have been cute as well. This little happy birthday. I'm just a stickler for these sentiment pieces, and it's nice to have ones that are smaller rather than larger. And then these little leaves, which are quite sweet. And then this is kind of like a background texture sort of die, and I had used it on this here at the back just to give it a little extra. But I think tonight we will do something just a little bit different, because this, of course, is one that's no longer available. So I will use this one, which is another great one. It is only the stamp set. It doesn't have any dies to go with it, so using other dies will help, and we don't need a particular die because we're going to stamp on the white bloom here. But this is the Prayers and Promises. So again, a good one for sentiments for those times where you just don't know what to say. And it's something I thought was quite a good one to have in your stash. And I think I will be keeping it there. But I had used from, like I say, the other set, For a Great Friend, and then inside, You're Pretty Wonderful. So first off, the watercolor paper, it is a little bit different. If you haven't used it, there's a different texture to it. And that's because you're going to use water on it. So it needs to have a different consistency than just cardstock, so it can hold all of the water that you're going to use. Now, we're not going to watercolor on the base, so we're kind of just using the base to go along with the card. So it's kind of the same type of paper here, because that's what we're going to do for these ones here. So I have 3 flowers that we're going to stamp. And you want to use the Memento ink for this, or actually the Stay-On ink would be best, but now that Stampin' Up! Has that hybrid black ink to kind of take the place of the memento, that's kind of would be the way to go. So we're just going to use a scrap piece of the watercolor, and I had my memento ink here. So again, how was your day today? We had kind of an interesting day. We've got a bit of a issue going on in the neighborhood. Big development beside us. We unfortunately got one of those lovely registered letters saying that our boundaries are crossing. So we're kind of in the midst of trying to fight for that. But that's how my day went. I did manage to get some crafting done, which is my way of kind of calming down. So that helped. All right, so we have the memento. And you'll notice again that there is that gap. I pointed that out last night. We're not going to worry about that. We're just going to treat that as if it was a full stamp when we're coloring. So I'm going to use the Hydrangea Hue ink. We're going to pull in the Golden Glow and the Peaceful Pine. Now, there's two ways you can do this, and I've showed a few times using the blender pens. So we could we could do this on regular cardstock as well. So if that's all you have is the white cardstock, you don't have the watercolor paper, then you can use these blender pens. That would work. But we're going to use the white, or the water painter here. So the water painter, you fill up with water, and then you have a brush tip here. This, like I say, is filled with water. You give it a little squeeze to get the water going, and always kind of have a piece of paper, scrap paper there that you can play on. So then we're going to, I like to take my pad and squeeze it, and then I can use the lid. That's one way of doing it, which works. Other people will take, sorry, I don't need to make that noise, take a block and put some ink on the block that way and use that. So I'll try that tonight so we don't kind of muck up the ink. But I would just as soon use the ink on but this now is kind of my palette. And I'll just start painting. And you can see if I got it wet and I just put it in that water, it's going to absorb in and just give you that kind of watercolor feature. So it depends on how you want your painting to look. So I kind of want to do just a regular sort of painting, and watercolor isn't meant to be specific and stay in the lines. So that little spot there that we're missing isn't a big problem. I'm not going to worry about that, but I'm just going to keep putting on my ink here. And like I say, this paper is meant to deal with the water. So even this big puddle of water I put down here, it will dry. So don't fuss about. If it gets a little too wet, just leave it. And you can even then come back and add more color to it. If you want the color a little bit darker because you feel it might have been too washed out, you can go back over it again. It's a very relaxing, I find, way of painting. And I'm by far not an artist, let me tell you. I have a sister who is an artist. She does watercolor, and pretty amazing what she can do. I'm almost hoping she's not watching this because I am not to that level of quality, but I do find it relaxing. Kind of reminds me of those not paint by numbers, but the water paint. Remember, did you have those when you were a kid? Probably dating myself now, where you just took like a wet paintbrush and painted over these dots that were on the paper, and they would then turn into paint that you could paint around, and it was like a watercolor sort of paint. If you use Cricut, there is watercolor painters there, and you've got these pens that you will put in your machine, and the machine will then draw a particular color for you, and then you can take a water painter and go around and just like those old coloring books. Okay, I'm just going to take the ink off of that because I don't need that. I'm just going to wipe it with a little bit of water to make sure it's all good and clean. Then we will do our green for the leaves. I was going to just push that down, but then I thought, you know what, that's probably a bad idea. And I used the other side from what I cleaned. So there we go. It's been that type of a day. All right, so I get some water here, pick it up. And then we're just going to do the leaves. Ooh, that's quite dark. So I'm going to just make sure I've got some water there to spread that around so I can lighten it. So just gently, you probably didn't even notice, but I just gently squeeze that pen to get some more water out of there. And as it dries, it goes a little bit lighter too, so that's good. I'm going to just get this very thin line here. And then I think I'm just going to get some more water flowing here. Try to just make sure that's a little there. It's a little bit lighter. And that's all how you want it, right? It's not, again, this is art. It's what you want. There's no right or wrong. But I do really enjoy that Stampin' Up! Gives us many different ways to use our talents and what we like. Some people, not painters, this is something they might enjoy watching but don't want to do. That's perfectly fine. We have the ability to stamp it, or you could use the watercolor pencils, right? Because we could color it in and then just go over it with a blender pen or the water painter. You have limited colors on that though. Like, I mean, there's a lot, but you don't get all of the in colors and everything with the watercolor pencils. So you're kind of limited if you want a specific color to match. And then, of course, we've got the blender pens, which, like I say, I use quite a bit. You've seen me use. There we go. Clean that off. And the darker the color, the harder it's going to be to kind of get that cleaned off. But we just want to give it a little bit of a swirl and clean it off there. You can see sometimes it will stain the tip, but not just a couple wipes. I think I need another tissue. Where did I put the tissues? All right. The weather was nice here today, though, which was nice. So again, share where you're from. Let me know what your weather has been like, because we're kind of in a world where everything is a little bit crazy. The fires and all of that. Okay, so for this one, I just want to do the center of those flowers. So all I'm going to do is what I started to do before, and just squeeze the tip. And this is my palette, and I just want to do the golden glow in the center here of my flowers. Just like that. And these new cases are so amazing. All right. So we did that to start because I wanted to give that a chance to dry before we start cutting it out. And you can see that that's, it's drying out pretty good. So that just shows you how much water this paper can take. We're just going to set that aside. You could use your heat tool if you wanted to speed up the process. Okay, so that is done. Where's my blooms here? So I needed to cut 2 blooms, a white one and a blue one, a hydrangea hue. And then we also need hydrangea hue flowers and peaceful pine leaves. So for the hydrangea hue blooms, for the blue one, we're going to use the second from largest, and then the white one, we're going to use third from largest. Like I shared before, all of the measurements and everything are on my blog, which is at sissyscardsandcrafts.com, and you can find it in the blog post there. And that is it. Like I said, everything is there. So I just have to turn around, use my big machine to cut these, and I will just be right back. To find everything here. Okay, so we have this one cut, and I think I'm just going to actually use the edge of that and save that little piece of paper because they're always helpful. I wonder if this one it will fit. No, I'm still going to have to do this on the big one, so bear with me. All right, so I've shared about the new joining bonus or process, I guess is the word I should use. It used to be you paid $135 and you got $165 worth of product. It had to be as close to 165 as possible, and you couldn't go over. Where now they are saying for 135 you can get $170 credit, which you can then go right away after you filled out the paperwork to join. And you get $170 credit, and you can then go and start shopping and buy whatever you want. The bonus of that is that you can buy stuff that you like I couldn't buy. So I still have an old Big Shot for my large cutting, and if I had had this opportunity when I joined, I could have used that $170 credit to buy a $190 machine. And that would have been a great jump start. Now, you don't have to do that. You can buy whatever you want, but you can go over and above, which is quite exciting, I find. So if that's something you're interested in, I would love to have you join my team. And we will be we do all sorts of fun things together. We can share ideas, have card days where we meet virtually and do cards. I'm here for any sort of assistance if you need it, and we can just start a journey together. So if that's something you're interested in, by all means, let me know and check it out. And it is a great promotion. You can, like I say, get whatever you want. And that's one of the only direct sales things where you don't have to buy a certain thing or a certain kit. And I've shared before, I sell Pampered Chef as well because I love to cook and I love the product, but you have to purchase their starting kit. And whether you've got the stuff or not, that's just what the starting kit is. Where this is not the case. You can purchase whatever you want. So it's awesome. Okay, so we've got some flowers here, and I've just popped them out. And you notice the center is coming out, and that's what I'm popping out over here, is these little tiny centers, because we don't need them. But I'm going to show you what we're going to do to fix that, because you do want that yellow center there. We just need to do something a little bit tricky, we'll say. Okay, so we've got our flowers, and I used 4, so I've got 4 there. And then I'm going to cut 6 leaves out. So I'm going to run these 3 through twice. Sometimes you can double the cardstock and just run it through once and get 2 cuts. But I wouldn't do that with something so intricate. Something like the big blooms, where it's just basically 1 cut. That's fine. But these have all of these leaves in it, or these lines in it, lines in the leaves. And that wouldn't come through if you had your cardstock doubled. And then you think of something like the DSP, which is a thinner paper, that would work for doubling. If that's something that you would work for your design, you could do that. Again, you might not get all of the detail on a finer detail. Oops, die. See, that's why I like to use the tape, because sometimes these move. And that's not what I want. And I'm being very stingy with my Peaceful Pine paper. We'll say that 10 times fast. Because I'm down to 3/4 of a sheet left. And there's, again, I like it. I like that color. I just don't want to waste it. So I'm just going to snip it off here and stick that little piece over in my save bucket. All right, I can see using these 2 particular dies a lot, just because they're ones that you could add on all sorts of things. So think about doing maybe a wreath. You need some foliage to kind of stick in the background. These would be great dies because they've got a good shape to them, and they are very versatile, I think. Okay, I'm just going to stick them back so I don't lose them, because you know that's not fun when you lose these little dies. All right, so now I'm not going to put these on the card yet. I do want to stamp on here first because it's going to be easier to stamp. So what would I like to put? I think I'm just going to put on the front, sending love, and then inside, I'm here for you. I think that will work. So, sending love. And I'm going to use the Secret Sea ink again, because I think that just works so well. Now I had this stamp out because I'm thinking I might use that. So I'm going to just stick that aside. And because our flowers are going to be to one side, I kind of want to keep to the right side for this sentiment. So I'm just going to ink it up and just kind of middle of the bloom, but to the right side, pop that on there. Perfect, perfect. That aside, I'll clean that off in a second. So now we can adhere this, and I'm just going to glue it down. There we go. And I like the liquid glue for this because I can, like everybody says, it gives you a little bit of wiggle room. So I can move it once I start to put it down. All right, so there's all those pieces. Now let's see if we can cut these guys out. And you can see that paper is all dried there, and that's that watercolor effect, right? Okay. So I'm just gonna separate those and get my die, bring my machine back. And with something like this, I am going to use my tape here because I want to make sure it lines up and does not move. So I like to even make sure I'm sticking it to the cutting plate as well. And then I'm going to come through. Even the mini Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine would be like an awesome start to your Stampin' Up journey if that's something you wanted to put in that first purchase. And with that first purchase, you're not only going to get your discount for that $170, you're going to also get your 10% off, I believe. And then you get those bonuses and you start earning your Stampin' rewards as well. You do have to agree to that. If you haven't purchased anything and it's your first purchase, we'll ask you if you want to collect them, and always select yes, because that is going to be 10% of what you spend this time you get as a discount. So if you spent $300, you're going to get a $30 credit that you can spend next time on whatever you want. So it's just things keep, sorry, snap. Things keep adding up. It's just like, it's awesome. And like I've shared before, I know you've probably gone to the local big box stores to look for supplies, and the quality just isn't the same. I just have to say that. It's just not the same. Okay, so this is going to go in the center, and then we're just going to position these around. Now, I did, like I said, I'd used these in the background, and this is where I thought I would use this stamp just to kind of put a little bit of texture in that background. So let me just get a piece of paper we can stamp off on. And I'm going to do the stamp off technique where I'm going to grab my ink, stamp my stamp, stamp it off once on a piece of paper, and then come over and do it on your card. And it's just a very faint stamp, but I think that just gives us something a little bit extra, because when I first put the card on, it just looked a little bit lonely, like it needed something in there. And when I did that blue behind it, I felt it just brought it out enough that made me happy. So I'm going to glue this down. Right on top of that, center it. Okay, this is our standard card size. So now we're going to put these on, and you might want to position them in different ways. So I think for this one, I'll do this. This one I'll do this way. And I did just trim off some of these stems just so they seem to be in the way. I could finagle around them. All right, so I think that will work. I want to be careful not to go too far past this edge. I'm going to get out my dimensionals and position them down. All right. Just kind of stick that there. Now, did I have another sheet here? Oh, I did. I thought I did. I thought we brought that out last night. And I am up a little bit here on this, what we're going to call the bloom, and I refer to as the blooms in my instructions. But don't worry about that with your dimensionals. Like sometimes we're anxious, or we're concerned about what level they're on, and we don't want to go to a different level. That's not the case with this, because they can be a little bit all over the place. All right, so I'm going to pull this piece of paper back out. I'm going to take my, and I could do this with the watercolor, but I think for this, I'm just going to take my Darling Duckling. If you have Golden Glow, use that, or any yellow, orangey sort of color. Just color a little bit of a strip. Now I'm going to cut that off, and I just want a little teeny tiny piece that is going to sit inside that flower. So I think that's even too wide. We're just gonna trim it right down. That looks about right. And so we're going to take these little pieces and 4 flowers, 3, 4, and I'm going to take a dimensional, and I want to pick up the back side of it, so the side that's not as dark, and place that on the center. Then put my flower on top of that, and the outside of the dimensional will stick to that. And then I can just position these guys where I want. I think I want that one there. So we're going to just continue to do this. So that one's upside down already. Just pick it up. If it's not centered, just shift it over. But see, there's lots of area around there that this flower will actually adhere to, because these are quite sticky. Just make sure that is in the center. And then we're going to just position these guys all around the card. Okay, upside down. You could make them a little bit smaller if you wanted to, but I think these are going to work. All right. And I like doing the mixture because it's giving me some different textures here. Whereas if I just left it with the watercolor, it's nice, and I'm happy with that. But it's just a different texture. Adding the die cuts to it. Where do I want this guy? I'll just put it right down there. And now I'm going to take these leaves, and we're just going to stick them in. And we want to make sure we're not covering up our sentiment, and placing these where they look best. I did just use some mini dimensionals and something like this larger leaf. I might put 2 on. And then that helps because I can kind of, maybe I want to get in under somewhere. and let it kind of stick out. And this one I think only needs one. And you could add, like maybe I want to just add a little bit of a dimensional under that edge just to hold it up so it doesn't tear when it's going into a card. Because with all of the little cutouts in these, they can be a little bit delicate. So just start with the 1 or 2 dimensionals on the bottom though, and then you can go from there to figure out if you need more or not. These larger ones I just find work well in those spaces. And then I'm gonna stick these little guys in here. What do you think? Let me know. I'm having some views of my videos, not a whole lot, but I'm getting some. Probably some of you are pretty consistent, and I greatly appreciate that. But let me know what you think. Give me some feedback. Do you like my designs? Would you rather I do something different? Or is there something you want me to show again? Or some way I'm teaching to change that up? Just anything. Give me some. I'll even take some video comments. I'm doing my best, but I can try. If there's a problem, please, please, please let me know. And I'll see what I can do. But I do want to, I'm here because I want to share my love of crafting with you. That is my goal. All right, so I want my ribbon here, and I'm just going to tie a bow. So all I've got, I'm going to use this hydrangea hue ribbon, the bordered ribbon, and I'm going to do my 2 bunny ears. Let me start again. There's a little bit of a wrinkle in it because of my elastic holding that on, but it comes out pretty easy. And so we'll tie it and see if it's affecting it or not. I don't believe it will. And then we can go from there. All right, so I find the bunny ear method works the best for me. It gives me the best bow. I'm intrigued by the bow makers and think, maybe those little peg boards. All right, and then sometimes to make sure my bows are even and I've got the right direction of angle, I just kind of put them together like this, face to face, however they're landing on the bow. It really isn't that difficult. And then I just snip them together. Okay. And then I'm going to put my elastic on there. Throw that out. And then glue dots are what you want for this. These always need a glue dot or 2. I actually have some larger ones that I purchased for Josh. And so I've been using them. All right, so I'm just going to stick this bow here like that. And then make sure I can read that. And then we're going to add some of our hydrangea hue pearls, dots on here. Scissors are being annoying. All right, so we're just going to throw a couple dots on here. Yes. And away we go. And like I say, I'm using a sentiment inside from one of our, from the Prayers and Promises. Oops, that guy didn't want to stay. Let's stick him down and up there. There we go. Okay, so let me know what you think. But also, I'm thinking I'm going to take this Golden Glow, and I could have just gone in here with that. I always forget this. Give it a little bit of sparkle, because you know I like the sparkle. Anyway, that is card 2 using the Violet Dreams Suite. Again, let me know what you think. Take care.